Today I'm going to show you how to do 4 completely different eye looks with only 4 eyeshadows. I wanted to start with some softer, kind of everyday makeup looks, and then we get bolder and a bit more intense as we go on. For my brushes today, I'm going to be using my new eye brush set with Sigma Beauty that I created. I really wanted this to be a perfect, complete brush set, so I'm only going to be using these brushes today. And if you do want to check out my brush set, you can use my code ANGELABRIGHT to save. This is the eyeshadow quad that I'm going to be using today for my 4 shadows. It's by YSL and the shade is 720. And of course you can use any 4 shadows that you want to use, but I'm making sure that I have a light shimmer, a more mid-tone shimmer shade, and then 2 matte shades, one being more of a light to medium tone and one being a deeper tone. I'm gonna prime my eyes the same exact way for each of these looks. I'm gonna use my Rare Beauty eyeshadow primer and blend that out with my AB1 brush. And then I always like to set my primer with a little bit of a translucent powder. Now my eye is primed and ready for shadow, so let's get started with the first look, and I want this one to be more of like a simple kind of everyday look. So I'm going to take the lighter matte shade on my AB2 brush. I'm going to start by placing this brush on my outer crease area because this is where I want the most pigment to be with this crease shade, because where you first place your brush down is where you're going to get the most pigment. So I'm going to do little circular motions right out here in the outer crease just to build up this shade, and then I'm taking a little bit more product and bringing that throughout my entire crease. And you can kind of build up this shadow to be as deep as you want. Now I'm switching to my AB4 shader brush with that same shade, and I'm just gonna stamp that on the very outer part of my eyelid, and I'm gonna connect it into this outer crease area that I made. And again, same brush, same shade, I'm gonna add this to my lower lash line. For my everyday looks, I really just like to have a bit of definition around my entire eye, which is what I'm using this lighter matte shade for. Now I'm gonna grab my Sigma switch and just use that to get some of this extra pigment off of my AB4 brush. And I'm gonna pick up my lighter shimmer shade on this brush, and I'm just gonna tap a little bit of that along the inner part of my eyelid, and I'm also gonna bring it into my inner corner. I really love the sparkle in this shade. I'm gonna pop a nude liner in my waterline. This one's by Makeup Forever. Since this look is more of my softer everyday look, I wanted to do just mascara, so I popped on a brown mascara, and I'm wearing the e.l.f. Lash and Roll. And here is the first look all done, nice and simple, only 2 eyeshadows. Let's move on to the second look, starting with my lighter matte shade on my AB2 brush. And I'm gonna start this look pretty similar to how I did the first one. I want this shade throughout my entire crease. The only difference is gonna be that I don't want the outer crease any deeper. I really want my entire crease to be like the same depth of color. And I am dipping back into the palette to build up the shade a few times until I'm happy with how it looks. Now on my AB4 shader brush, I'm going to take that more mid-tone shimmer, and I'm going to pack this shade on my entire eyelid. So I'm really going to make sure I get all the way in this inner part of my lid and also the very outer corner. I really like how taupey and kind of cool tone this shade is. I think it's so pretty. And then after I apply that shimmer along my entire eyelid, I like to go back to my fluffy brush and just very softly blend in that crease so there's no harsh lines along the shimmer. Now I'm grabbing my AB6 small detail brush with that same mid-tone shimmer, and I'm going to run that across my entire lower lash line. I think a little bit of shimmer can be really pretty along the lower lash line. You just want to make sure you're using a really small brush like this so you don't over apply the shimmer. Then I'm grabbing my small blending brush with that lighter matte shade, and I'm gonna use that to soften around the edges of the shimmer. Now I'm going to grab the lightest shimmer on my small detail brush, pop that in the inner corner, and also the very center of my eyelid, just to kind of highlight this area a little bit more. It just kind of adds a little bit of brightness to the center of the eye, which gives it a very subtle halo effect. I'm going to add a cool tone brown liner in my waterline. This is Makeup Forever Endless Cacao. To finish off this look, I went ahead and did just a few coats of black mascara to make my lashes just a little bit thicker than the first look. This look is definitely more shimmer heavy, but I think it is so pretty. This is still a look that I would wear for every day. So I wanted something a bit softer for those first two looks, but now I really want to glam things up and kind of do some more bold, deeper looks. I'm gonna grab my AB3 crease brush in my lighter matte shade. So I picked up this shade on the flat side of the brush, and I'm gonna start by building up the shadow on the outer half of my eye. And as always, I'm doing a few layers of this shadow until I'm happy with how it looks. And then I'm going to take a little bit more of that shadow and just lightly bring it into the inner part of my lid, just to add some soft definition in here, but nothing too harsh. Taking more of that same shade on the tip of my brush, and I'm going to run this across my entire lower lash line. Now it's time to work in this deepest shade, so I'm going to take a little bit of that on my small blending brush. I have this shadow on the tip of my brush, and I'm going to start by just kind of stamping this shade on the very, very outer corner of my eye to really deepen this up. Once most of the product is off of my brush, I can start to do some little blending motions to kind of soften it out. And I'm also going to bring that deepest shade along the outer part of my lower lash line. And when I'm working with a darker shadow like this on the outer part of my eye, I like to make sure that my lower lash line connects to the darker shadow up here. So you can see how it kind of wraps around this outer part of my eye. And you can really make this as deep as you want to, so I'm going to add a little bit more. Then I'm going to go back to my crease brush with more of that lighter matte shade on it and just really soften around all of these edges of the darker shadow. And along this lower lash line area as well. And then grabbing my shader brush with my mid-tone shimmer, I'm going to pop this shade on the center of my eyelid. And it's totally fine if this overlaps some of this darker shadow a little bit. Same shader brush, I'm grabbing the lightest shimmer, and that's going to go on the inner part of my lid. And then taking whatever's left over of that lightest shimmer just right in my inner corner. I'm going to add my nude liner to my waterline. So since this look is a little bit more dramatic with the deeper outer corner, I did want to add a half lash. So I just popped on a half lash right out here on the outer corner, and for that lash I'm wearing the Bright Lashes Flutter. This kind of gradient style look where it goes from light to dark is one of my favorite kind of glam going out eye looks, and I think it looks really flattering on all eye shapes. Now let's get started on the final look. I have used my shader brush quite a few times now, so I want to clean it off. I'm just going to use this little mini daily brush spray. So I just spray that on the towel, kind of wipe off my brush, and all of that shadow comes off. So I'm going to take my lighter matte shade on my shader brush. I really loaded up my brush with this shadow, and I'm going to pack this on my entire eyelid. And just like with the other looks, I'm building up this shade until I'm happy with how the pigment looks. And you can see I'm really pressing on this shadow, and I'm bringing it all the way up into my eye socket up here. And then I'm grabbing my fluffy blending brush with a little bit more of that shadow on this brush and just using that to soften out the edges so my crease is nice and smooth. Now on my shader brush, I'm going to pick up the deepest shade. I'm going to start by building up this shade on my outer corner, kind of similar to how I just did the previous look. You can see I have quite a bit of a harsh line with that deeper shade, so I'm going to grab my small blending brush with no shadow on it and just run it right on top of that line to soften this out. And that's why I had to create this small blending brush, because hence the name, it's perfect for blending in these smaller areas. Now I'm also going to add that deepest shade to my inner corner. I'm adding this shade to the inner corner because I'm going for a more halo eye effect for this look. And then I'm just taking whatever's left over on my shader brush and kind of dusting it right in the center of my crease so that these deeper shades kind of connect right here in the center of my eye. So you can see that I'm leaving the center of my lid blank for now. And since I want this look to be the smokiest and kind of the most intense of the four, I'm going to go back in with my matte shades and just kind of build them up until I'm happy with the depth that I have. I'm gonna grab my fluffy blending brush with a little bit of my lightest matte shade and just kind of use that to run over everything in the crease to make sure there are no harsh lines. Now I'm taking my AB6 small detail brush with that deepest shade, and I'm gonna run that across my entire lower lash line. And again, I'm doing a few layers of this shadow because I want this to be nice and dark. Now I'm grabbing the lighter matte shade on my small blending brush, and I'm going to use that to soften out the lower lash line. So I'm really just softening the edges of the darkest shade down here, and then I'll go back in and just touch up that darker shade, but I'm staying really close to my lash line. And then I'm also going to stamp this darkest shade along my top lash line with my same small detail brush. Now because this isn't your typical liner brush, you're not going to get a super precise line with it, but I do want something a bit smudgier and smoky for this look. So I have all of this smokiness going on, and now I'm going to pop on one of the shimmers. And I want my shimmer shade to really pop for this look, so I'm going to grab my NYX glitter primer, and I'm just going to tap a little bit of that primer on the very center of my eyelid. And this is really going to help intensify the shimmer and just give it something to stick to. I'm going to grab the lightest shimmer on my finger, and again, I'm using my finger for this because I want it to be intense. So I'm just popping that right on top of the primer. I'm also going to bring some of that into my inner corner with my finger, and then going back to my crease brush with no product on it and just kind of softening the edges of that shimmer. I'm going to add a dark brown liner to my waterline. This one is Makeup Forever Limitless Brown. I went ahead and added my mascara and lashes for this look, and for this lash, I wanted something a little bit more bold, so I'm wearing the Bright Lashes Daydream. And I love how this eye look turned out. It is nice and smoky with all of those matte shades, but then that pop of shimmer in the center of the lid just really makes this whole look just stand out. I hope you guys enjoyed learning how to do 4 different eye looks using the same 4 shadows. I'd love to know which look is your favorite, and don't forget you can check out my new eye brush set at Sigma Beauty and use my code ANGELABRIGHT to save. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.